Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing fine and welcome to today's session. Today, we'll be discussing parts of speech. All right. So, parts of speech is something that we, have been studying about from the very beginning. But why do we need to study it again? Why do we need to go through everything that probably we already know, right? Because parts of speech would not be directly asked in your exam, but indirect questions that utilize the knowledge of parts of speech can come and will come for sure. So that is why, even if we are well versed with the topic, we all are, right? This is something which is very, very, very basic. Even if we think we know the topic very well, we still need to delve a little deeper and try to understand the type of questions that can come in the exam. Okay, so what do we mean by parts of speech? Parts of speech are grammatical categories of words that are divided based on the role that they play in a sentence, the function that they perform in a sentence, right? And what type of questions can we expect? Parts of speech could show itself in questions pertaining to error spotting, fill in the blanks, subject verb agreement, para jumbles, sentence correction. Right? So superficially, we may feel that this topic is not that important, or this is something that we have been studying all our life, but there are questions that actually come out of this topic, right? And important questions. Error spotting, fill in the blanks, subject verb agreement, sentence correction, even noun pronoun placement or arrangement in a parajumble. You need to know about different parts of speech. So, without any further delay, let's start. We have a sentence here in front of us. Nora always makes delicious cakes and cookies for me. Yum. And a very special thing about this sentence is that it consists of all the parts of speech that we need to discuss today and in the upcoming classes. Obviously, we won't be able to complete the entire topic today because it's a lengthy topic. But yes, today and in the upcoming classes, all the parts of speech. So Nora, the name of a girl. Noun. Always, it is modifying the action of the sentence, modifying the verb of the sentence. So it's an adverb. Makes is an action, right? It is an action. So this is a verb. Delicious. Cakes. Delicious is a word that describes my noun, which is cake in this case. So delicious is an adjective. Cake. Pura. Sorry, there was a technical glitch. Yes. So sorry, there was a technical glitch at our end. So yes, the sentence here in front of us, It contains all the parts of speech. One by one, we are going to go through all the individual parts of speech and try to understand things in detail. I'm sure that you must be aware of the concept, but let's try to revise, if I can put it in that way. So, nouns, they name a person. Nouns name a person, place, thing, an idea, any quality, right? Anything, any person, any place, event, thing, idea, quality, notion, emotion is a noun. Nouns are basically naming words. All right. Noun can act or can function as the subject of the sentence. They can function as the object of the sentence. Subject, doer in the sentence, and object, receiver in the sentence, right? So, the dog chased a ball. Here, dog, the subject of the sentence, is a noun. Ball, the object of the sentence, is also a noun. Tina plays the piano. Tina, noun. Piano, again, a noun. So any person, any place, any thing, any animal, any object, any idea, any quality, anything that is tangible or intangible. It could be an abstract idea, it could be an emotion, is a noun. And noun could represent the subject of a sentence or the object of a sentence. If we classify nouns, we can classify them into 8 broad categories. First, common nouns. Common nouns refer to any people, any place, anything, something which is not specific, something which is general. When you're talking about something which is not specific, something which is general. For example, girl. This could be any girl. I have not specified any girl, right? City could be any city, not specified. Animal, house, food, right? So anything that is general, that is not specific, that is not the specific name of any person or specific name of any place, is a common noun. Okay? Now, proper nouns. Proper nouns are used to name specific people, specific things, specific places. If we talk about common nouns would take up a capital letter only if the sentence begins with them. Otherwise, they will not take up a capital letter. They would only take up a capital letter if the sentence is beginning with a common noun. But when we are talking about a proper nouns would always begin with a capital letter, no matter wherever they are placed in the sentence. Regardless of their placement in the sentence, proper nouns would always start with a capital letter. John, specific, name of a specific person. London, a specific place. Pluto, France. So anything that is specific, that is not generic, that is not general, is a proper noun. And proper noun would always begin with a capital letter. Next, Countable nouns, things that can be counted, that have a singular and a plural form. That have a singular and a plural form. Something that you can count, something that you can probably measure, right? Car, cars, desk, desks, cups, house, houses, bikes. You can count these things, right? You can count these things, so they come under the category of countable nouns. Uncountable nouns, they cannot be counted. You cannot count the air that is present around you. You cannot count love. You cannot count happiness. You cannot count emotions. You cannot count ideas. You cannot count qualities. You cannot count notions, right? So, such entities would come under the category of uncountable nouns. Countable nouns are also known as count nouns, and uncountable nouns are also known as mass nouns. Okay, moving on, concrete nouns. Concrete nouns are people or things that exist physically, that can be perceived by one of the five senses. You can either see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, right? Smell it. So anything that is tangible, anything that is in its physical form, in its material form, would be a concrete noun. Dog, tree, apple, moon, sock, right? Would come under the category of concrete nouns. On the contrary, abstract nouns have no physical existence. They are intangible. You cannot perceive them with your five senses, right? For example, any idea, any emotion, any concept, any quality. You cannot hear it, you cannot smell it, you cannot touch it, you cannot see it. Okay, so these entities would come under the category of abstract noun, right? And abstract noun, when we talk about abstract noun, we talk about any emotion, we talk about any idea, we talk about any concept. You cannot convert them into a plural form. Love will always remain love. It will not become loves. Obviously, if it's used as a verb, then it would. But if it is used as a noun, then it would not, right? Time would not, the plural of it would not be times. It would still remain time. And they would take up a singular verb. Obviously, they would take up a singular verb. So, love is all that we need. Time is money. Okay, so make sure that you look out for errors like these. Abstract noun cannot be converted into its plural form, right? Happiness would remain happiness. It would not become happinesses, right? That is incorrect. Next, compound noun. Compound nouns are created by joining or combining two or more words to form one single noun. Okay, compound nouns are created when two or more words come together and they form one noun. Now, compound nouns can be divided into three categories: closed compound nouns, open compound nouns, and hyphenated compound nouns. Okay, closed compound nouns, open compound nouns, and hyphenated compound nouns. Now, When you look at a word like rainfall, it is made up of two words, rain and fall, but there is no space between these two words. There is no space between these two words. They are written together. So this would be an example of closed compound noun. Again, sunlight. There is no space between sun and light. So again, it would be an example of a closed compound noun. When you look at a word, look at a noun such as credit card, such as ice cream, such as living room, you would observe that there is a space between the two words. There is a space between credit and card. There is a space between ice and cream. There is a space between living and room. Right? So such compound nouns are known as open compound nouns. And then there are compound nouns in which there is a hyphen or multiple hyphens present in between the words. So, son in law, mother in law, merry-go-round would come under the category of hyphenated compound nouns. Next, collective nouns. Collective nouns refer to a set or a group of people or things or animals taken as or treated as one single unit or one single entity. Okay? For example, team would consist of multiple members, but it is team as a word, team as a noun is taken as one entity, one noun. Again, pile, stack, flock, bunch. Okay? And you can use a collective noun and it can be followed by a plural noun. For example, bunch of flowers, pile of books, right? Pile of books. Now, there are some nouns whose plural and singular form is the same. For example, the plural of deer is deer, right? The plural of sheep is sheep. The plural of fish is fish. We use fishes when we are talking about different species of fishes. When we are talking about different species of fish. Okay? Species, for that matter, is the same. Singular is also species, plural is also species. Offspring. Singular is offspring, plural is also offspring. We tend to use offspring sometimes, but we should refrain from using offsprings. It is offspring. Okay? So if I have to say a flock of, I would say sheep and not sheeps, right? I would say a flock of sheep and not sheeps. A herd of cattle and not cattles. And obviously you cannot, you need to understand that this in itself represents a group, right? So singular and plural form would be the same. Next, certain words, there are certain nouns that can act as a concrete noun and as an abstract noun. It just depends on the context. Okay, there are words that can act as a concrete noun and as an abstract noun depending on the context of the sentence. For example, a concrete noun refers to something that can be perceived with one of the five senses. We have already established this. While an abstract noun refers to an idea, quality, or state, a word's classification depends on whether it is used to represent a physical object or a conceptual idea. For example, let's have a look at the word light. The light in the room was too dim to read by. Here we are talking about physical light, something that we can see. Okay, here we are talking about physical light, a physical entity, a tangible entity. So in this particular sentence, light would represent a concrete noun. But if I say I hope to shed some light on the matter for you, I am not going to physically shed light. It's just a way of saying that I am going to reveal something or I am going to give you some information. I'm not talking about physical light here. I'm talking about light as a conceptual idea. So, in this particular concept or in this particular sentence, light acts as an abstract noun. Because here, by light, I do not mean physical light. I do not mean that something is tangible. If I talk about light, I do not mean that something is tangible in this case. Again, space. The space between the two buildings is narrow. Here, space talks about a physical area that I can see. A physical area that I can see. Right? So in this case, space would act as a concrete noun. But if I say I need some space to think about his future, I do not want an actual physical area to think. I just need some time, right? So here, space represents a period of time. Again, it represents a conceptual need. So in this particular context, space would be an abstract noun. Again, mind. He has a sharp mind for solving puzzles. Here, mind represents your physical brain. Your physical brain, a material thing. So here, mind would be a concrete noun. But if I say she changed her mind about going, it's a decision. Here, it represents that she changed her decision. She did not actually or physically change her brain. She did not physically, change her brain or mind. She is just going to change her decision or her way of thinking, her thought process. So here, mind represents an abstract idea or an abstract noun. Again, if I talk about, I forgot to carry my purse, it had all my money. So here I'm talking about money, physical money, notes and coins. So then it would be a concrete noun because I'm actually talking about the material, coins, notes, whatever. But if I say, you should spend wisely, money doesn't grow on trees, I'm, using money as an object of value, as an idea, as a notion. So then it could be taken up as an abstract noun. So purely depends on the context of the statement, context of your sentence. Again, if we talk about love, one word could represent multiple categories. Love, is it a common or a proper noun? It is a common noun. Is it a countable or uncountable? It is an uncountable noun. Is it a concrete or abstract? It is an abstract noun. So one noun could actually be given different categories. ठीक है? If I talk about, let's say, Reena, proper noun, countable noun, concrete noun, right? So we can take one word, and actually, if we look at it, it could represent different categories of nouns. Next part of speech, pronouns. Pronouns replace nouns to simplify speech and writing, to avoid any kind of repetition, to make the writing seem, more fluent, something that is, easy to understand. For example, if I repeat a word in a sentence, keep on repeating it, keep on repeating a noun, it would become very weird for the reader to read the same word again and again and again and again. So we tend to replace nouns with pronouns in order to improve or simplify speech or writing. Again, like nouns, pronouns can also function as subjects and objects in a sentence. Again, pronouns can be classified into different categories. We have personal pronouns. Personal pronouns can be further classified into three categories: subjective personal pronouns, objective personal pronouns, and possessive personal pronouns. Then we have demonstrative pronouns, we have relative pronouns, indefinite pronouns, interrogative pronouns, reflexive pronouns, and reciprocal pronouns. So let's go over all these categories one by one. First of all, subjective personal pronouns, they act as the subject of the sentence. They act as the doer of the sentence. Subjective personal pronouns include I, you, she, he, it, you as in plural, and they. Okay? I walked for 5 minutes. Who is performing the action of walking? I, right? The subject of the sentence. You came late to the meeting. Again, the action is being performed by you, the subject of the sentence. She was so upset that she cried for 2 hours. Who performed the action of being upset? She. And then who performed the action of crying? She. So again, in both the cases, we are going to use the subjective personal pronoun. Subjective personal pronoun would represent the subject of the sentence, the doer of the action. Okay? Objective personal pronouns would act as the object of a sentence. They include pronouns like me, you, her, him, it, us, you, and them. The police officer told me to slow down. Here, the police officer is the subject of the sentence because he is performing the action of telling. So me would become the object of the sentence. Hence, I would use an objective pronoun here. He reprimanded them and asked them to leave. Who is the subject? He. So them here becomes the object of the sentence. The police officer said there are a lot of speedy motorists like us. Okay, this is the subject and this would become the object. Direct, indirect object, right? Would take up objective personal pronouns. Next, possessive personal pronouns, they are used to show possession, that something belongs to someone. They define a person or number of people who owns a particular object. For example, mine, yours, hers, his, its, ours, and theirs. Is this book yours or his? All the books are mine. So possessive personal pronouns are used to show possession. Next, demonstrative pronouns are used to point to specific object, specific places, specific people, specific things. Right? We have this and these. This is used for singular entities, these for plural, and then we have that and those. Again, that is used for singular entities and those is used for plural entities. What is the difference? This and these refer to things that are nearby, that are in close proximity to you. Right? If something is very close to me, if a pen is very close to me, I would say, give me this pen. Or if it is plural, give me these pens. But let's say if the pen is at a distance from me, I would say, give me that pen. Give me those pens. So again, it depends on the proximity. If something is close to you, you would use this and these, depending on whether it is singular or plural, obviously. And if something is at a distance from you, it is farther away, you would use that and those. This is the dress I will wear. That is the one I wore yesterday. These apples are not ripe. You can eat those instead. Right? So we are pointing to specific things. We are pointing to specific things using demonstrative pronouns. Interrogative pronouns are used to ask questions. Okay, interrogative pronouns are used for interrogation. They are used to ask questions. For example, who, whom, whose, which, and what. Who and whom are used to refer to people, which is used to refer to things and animals. And the difference between who and whom, who acts as the subject, whom acts as the object. Right? Who called you? Here, this particular word is performing the action of calling. So this is the subject of the sentence. Hence, we are using who. Whom did you call? Here, you has performed the action of calling. So you becomes the subject and this would take up the objective pronoun, which is whom. So who is used as the subject while whom acts as the object. Which is the best restaurant? What did he tell you? Whom should we invite? So here we is the subject because we are performing the action of inviting. Who invited you? Here this word is performing the action of inviting, so it becomes the subject. Hence we use who. Whose coat did you wear? Okay, so interrogative pronouns are used to ask questions. Next, relative pronouns, they are used to link phrases or clauses with one another. Relative pronouns are who, whom, that, whose, and which. Okay, somewhat similar to interrogative pronouns, but when we use them in a sentence, the meaning is totally different. Compounds would be whoever, whomever, whichever, right? Again, whoever, subject, whomever, object, whichever for animal or things. The boy who is standing next to the gate is my brother, right? Relating to parts of the sentence. So the boy who is standing next to the gate is my brother, who is performing the action of standing. So we will use a subjective pronoun. This is George, whom you met. Here, you is the subject. You performed the action of meeting. So this would take up an objective pronoun. Whom you met at our house last year. The book that I was reading is on the table. The teacher whose car broke down is here. The new sports complex, which will be built on the site of the old power station, will provide facilities for cricket and soccer. Whoever solves the puzzle first will win a prize. I will send a letter to whomever I choose. So same concept, whoever for the subject of the sentence, whomever for the object of the sentence. Now, what is the difference between that and which? If you look at the sentence here, the book that I was reading is on the table. There are no commas in between. If you look at the second sentence, the new sports complex, comma, which will be built on the site of the old power station, comma, will provide facilities for cricket and soccer. Now, if you look at this part, this is unnecessary information. This is unnecessary information. I do not need this information. What is important for me is the fact that the new sports complex will provide facilities for cricket and soccer. This addition here is something which is insignificant. So, whenever you're adding essential information that is necessary to the meaning of a sentence, without which the meaning of the sentence would probably get changed or it would not make perfect sense, you use that. But whenever we are adding any information that is not very important to the context of the sentence, that is quite insignificant, that is, we're just adding it as an add-on, something which is not necessary, something the sentence could do without. In that case, we are going to use which. For example, that introduces essential or restrictive clauses which are necessary for the sentence's meanings and are not set off by any commas, while which introduces non-essential or non-restrictive clauses that provide additional non-critical information and are set off by commas. For example, the car that has a dent in the back is mine. So this particular information, has a dent in the back, is essential because it specifies that that car is mine. Right? It specifies that car is mine. Which car? The one that has a dent in the back. But if I say my car, comma, which is painted red, comma, has a dent in the back bumper, this particular information, painted red, is unnecessary information. This is extra information because we are still talking about the same car. Even if this information would not be here, it would not change the overall sense of the sentence. Similarly, if I say the lamp that is on my desk is a custom piece of artwork. Now, that is on my desk is essential information because there could be more lamps in the room. How do I specify the lamp that is a custom piece of artwork? There could be multiple lamps in the room. So I specified by saying that is on my desk. So I'm talking about that particular lamp. So this information right here is essential. It is essential to the meaning of the sentence. But if I say my bedroom, which is on the second floor, is painted purple. Now this is unnecessary information. My bedroom would still be purple. It would be purple if it were on the first floor or the second floor or the third floor. The important information here is that the bedroom is painted purple, right? This here is an unnecessary piece of information that my sentence could do without. So that is used for necessary or essential pieces of information that add certain meaning to the sentence, and which would be used for non-essential information that will not have any commas, will not use any commas, whereas which will. Indefinite pronouns, they refer to identifiable but not specified person, place, or thing. An indefinite pronoun could be all, any, none, some, all, another, anybody, anyone, everybody, no one, nobody, several, somebody, someone, right? They do not specify any particular person or thing, but obviously it is an identifiable pronoun. Everybody got lost on the way. Someone is at the door. Several were killed in the battle. Now, again, we've discussed this earlier when we were going through subject-verb agreement. Indefinite pronouns that have ONE or BODY towards the end. Everyone, everybody, someone, somebody, no one, nobody. Okay? They would take up singular verbs. Everyone is coming for the party. Someone is going to call you. Okay? And indefinite pronouns like several and few would take up a plural verb form. So several were killed in the battle and someone is at the door. Next, reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are words that end in self or selves, and they refer back to the subject of the sentence, indicating that the subject is performing the action on itself. Reflexive pronouns are used when we need to indicate, when we need to specify that the subject is performing the action on itself. She baked a cake for herself. So herself here is a reflexive pronoun. We decided to eat it ourselves. Ourselves is a reflexive pronoun. They should be ashamed of themselves. He punished himself. So reflexive pronouns indicate that the subject is performing the action on itself. She baked the cake for herself, not for any other person, but for herself. He punished himself, not any other person, but himself. So the subject is performing the action on itself. A reflexive pronoun should only be used when the subject and the object of the verb are the same entity, and reflexive pronouns cannot be the subject of a sentence. You cannot start by saying myself went to the store. This is incorrect. Right? So reflexive pronoun as such, as a pronoun, cannot represent the subject of a sentence. You cannot start a sentence with myself, himself, herself, ourself. Next, intensive pronouns. They are quite similar to reflexive pronouns, but they are used to add emphasis to a noun or another pronoun in a sentence. Technically, if we look at the words are going to be the same. Myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourself, yourselves, themselves. but the context is different. Here, if I say I myself will be attending the meeting, I am laying emphasis on the fact that I am going to attend the meeting. She herself solved the problem. She did not take help from anyone. She herself solved the problem. So I'm laying emphasis. The president himself gave the speech. Now, how do you know that an intensive pronoun has been used? You can check this by removing the intensive pronoun. If the sentence still makes sense, if it still makes logical sense, it was likely that it can be likely that it was used for emphasis, right? And it is an intensive pronoun. For example, if we say the queen herself attended the event, and if I just erase herself, the queen attended the event, it makes perfect sense. The sentence still makes perfect sense. So I can know for sure that herself here is an intensive pronoun. Again, I will be attending the meeting makes perfect sense. She solved the problem makes sense. The president gave the speech. So these words were just used for emphasis and not any other purpose per se. So we can do without these words. That's how you get to know that an intensive pronoun has been used. Lastly, reciprocal pronouns. Reciprocal pronouns express a mutual action or relationship between two or more people or things. Examples: each other and one another. Okay, each other and one another. What is the difference? Technically nothing as such. The difference between the two is blurred because we tend to use it, in any way that we have, but generally each other is used to refer to two entities when we are talking about two entities, while one another is used for more than two. So if I say John and Mary hugged each other, here only two people are involved. So we have used each other. But the team members celebrated with one another because there are multiple team members. But if we say the team members celebrated with each other, that is also not incorrect. Okay, that is also not incorrect. So that is why I said that the difference between the two is blurred. But technically, if we talk about the difference, each other is used for two entities and one another is used for more than two. Okay, so we have covered nouns and pronouns in this class. In the next class, we are going to cover verbs and adjectives. So hope to see you all in the next session. Stay tuned and take care.